as they finished race 1. Jason Bright is on pole position for the second race today. Mark Scaife is alongside him. Then it's Ambrose and Greg Murphy. Todd Kelly in position 5. Lowndes will start from 6. Richard 7th and John Bowe 8th.
The yellow box down the right-hand side indicates where these guys have qualified, so you can see that David Bernard there dropped from 7th to 9th yesterday. Glenn Seaton, though, improved from 12th to 10th. Brad Jones will start from row 6 alongside Rick Kelly.
Yeah, Rick Kelly was quite quick in practice before this race. Bargwanna, Stephen Johnson, Garth Tander and Mark Larkham go down to position 16. Radicic is 17. Max Wilson, the Brazilian, is up there. Ellery, Paul Morris in 24. Then LP, Larry Perkins and Paul Wheel, Cameron McConville and Tony Longhurst.
Wheel made up something like 7 positions yesterday, so a good effort by the K&J Thermal driver. Craig Baird a bit further back for Team Brock, and Jason Richards and Simon Wills, the Kiwis, on the row behind them.
Okay, I mentioned we've got 36 cars to start this race. Let's see who's all the way down the back where it's going to be pretty hot, and quite surprisingly, Neil Crompton, the 00 Motorsport Ford Falcon, starting in position 36. And we're under green for race 2. We're ready to go. 100 kilometres in front of us. Who'll get the jump between Bright and Scaife? Murphy's alongside Ambrose on the second row. It looks as though Scaife got away quite well. They'll come down to turn 1. It's a sweeping left-hander, and Mark Scaife has gone ahead of his teammate straight out of the box. Great
start there by Scaife, and Bright now playing defensive already. Ambrose slots in front of Greg Murphy in that battle for third. Todd Kelly ahead of Craig Lowndes. It looks as though Glenn Seaton has made a ripper of a start. So the Ford driver starting to make some inroads in this round. It's been tough for him in the lead up to him. On the front line, is that Paul Morris?
Could be Paul Morris or Jason Richards. It's definitely Paul Morris. A big contact.
Rick Kelly.
Rick Kelly and one of the Valvoline Cummins Commodores. Oh, Mark Larkham's caught up in that smash. John Faulkner's in there. Oh, that's messy down the back. And look at that. Paul Morris cleans up the back. A big traffic jam and damage to 5 or 6 cars.
Now this is likely to bring out the red flag, no doubt about it. Look at the damaged cars here.
Forbes,
Rodney Forbes, Russell Ingles in that one, and so too Wayne Gardner.
Anthony Tratt, that's car number 75 coming around. So Paul Morris has got moving. That's Anthony Tratt. John Faulkner is stuck with nowhere to go. He got T-boned after getting spun around. And Russell Ingles...
Someone pushed me straight into him.
Yeah, Russell Ingles stuck in his car. He gets out. All the drivers seem to be okay.
Put the fire out, John, or was it just a flash fire? It was stuck on full throttle, just revving it off, so I don't know.
Well, so talking about a fire on board the Dynapack car there. John Faulkner had a pretty good run back at Eastern Creek. You're on board the car of Russell Ingles as we take a look around and survey the damage. It's everywhere. Rick Kelly. Oh, there's all sorts of names and damage. That's at turn 3, just as they come up the incline.
I think Russell's actually on his way back to the pits already by the look of that. He's vacated the car and off. But this is the unfortunate thing that happens in some of these races, because it's very crowded. There's 36 cars on the grid, makes it very difficult.
Okay, keep your eyes at the back of the field here. There you go, Rick Kelly's gone.
Now I wonder if he got a tap of some kind there, Dick. What might have set that off? Well,
it's pretty hard to see from that shot, but certainly Rick Kelly was the one that basically was involved, and boy, you know, then it's a chain reaction from there. Everything happens.
Bit of evasive action from Jason Bargwanna. Now, when that car of Rick Kelly's has rolled back, that's when the next, I guess, concertina has happened, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
There's Faulkner's car.
Faulkner's car, and then Forbes has sort of got into the back of Faulkner. So.
And then a very big impact at the end that involved Paul Morris. Some drivers that get through. Now take a look at Jason Bargwanna. He'll get speared out off the right of the track to our left.
Now was there contact there between Bargwanna and Kelly maybe?
Oh, I think it looks like one of the Valvoline cars and Kelly might have got together a little bit.
Look at the evasive action from everyone else here. Mark Larkham off into the dirt, or the grass I should say, so too McConville and Larry Perkins. Stephen White, a last minute move to move around.
And Paul Morris to finish it all off.
Here's another angle. Not really conclusive in terms of determining how it all started, but both the Shell Fords lucky to avoid it though.
Yeah, we've had our share for the weekend, I think.
Haven't you just? Look at the carnage that just evolves after one spin. Take a look at another angle as Rick Kelly gets spun around. Now watch the car number 17 Shell Helix Ford Falcon, just misses it. Stevie Johnson's probably driven straight to the newsagents to get a lottery ticket. The rest of them smashed to smithereens. 6 cars caught in that tangle. Another 5 at least suffered some pretty severe damage. He's the luckiest man at the moment, and at the moment also Stephen White in the Emery Motorsport entry managed to get around that. Now we know that Rick Kelly, Russell Ingle, Rodney Forbes and John Faulkner suffered so much damage that they are very unlikely to be on this starting grid, the restart.
Just wonder what the officials might have to say about that incident between now and the final race of the weekend.
Well, it's pretty hard to say until such time as, you know, all the video evidence comes through.
Okay, here we go for a restart. You've got Jason Bright in pole position and Mark Scaife next to him at the front row of the grid. Of course, Scaife got the jump on Bright in the first start. Now what happens in the second one? Let's take a look. Well, the Holland Racing team have been squeezed out by Greg Murphy. This is going to be interesting coming into turn one. The left-hander, and it's car number one, so Scaife does it again. This time, Bright slots back into position number 3.
We're hearing word from the pits that Cameron McConville has had to restart this race from pit lane, a clutch problem of some sort. One of the DJR Fords off to the dirt there. That looks like Stephen Johnson, in fact, in car 17, so he's trying to make some ground. Look at the defensive line from Bernard, almost contact with John Bow as they sweep through the right-hander.
So, the wash-up of all of that mess is... Oh, Craig Lowndes goes around. That's at the hairpin. Lowndes does a big 360, avoids all the trouble. Will now try and get the 00 Motorsport Ford Falcon back on the track, which he does, but right at the back of the field. So first lap dramas in our first start and our second start as well.
Strategy, Dick, a big question here with the pit window due to open very, very shortly. Just which way do you think a lot of the teams will play it?
Well, quite frankly, I think, you know, the safest way of doing these things, because you never know what's going to happen, is the earlier you do your pit stop, the less chance you've got of being caught out by a pace car.
There will be some people, though, that perhaps are further down the order. Maybe now a Craig Lowndes, who's right at the back of the pack, that could roll the dice.
Well, he could sort of stay out there a bit longer just to try and make up some ground, because, or he may choose to stop, because then he's got clean air in front of him.
We should make that point, what Dick's alluding to. Then had some damage to the 00 Motorsport Ford.
I think he's broken a watts linkage or something at the back by the look of it.
So Craig Lowndes comes in. 00 Motorsport group are down in Tent City. They're right down the end of pit lane, or in fact the start of pit lane. So Lowndes only has to go about 10 or so metres before he pulls in, but then he's got a hell of a long ride out to get out of there. So they've had a look all around. Now let's see what happened. Yeah. Behind him is one of the Castrol Perkins.
Linkage, I think, at the back there, where the rear end stepped out on him.
Very similar thing. In fact, the same thing that happened to Jason Bright at Adelaide. We explained that to you, the Watts linkage is, and it basically holds the two wheels back together. Once that goes, your car goes with it. So Craig Lowndes is out for the moment at least. Lap 3 of 35, something we haven't seen so far in Valley today. It's been a hell of a crazy start, hasn't it? Temperature and humidity does a lot of funny things to a lot of different people, and it's certainly messed up this field at the moment. Let's take a look at how they stand. We've got Mark Scaife going through in first position. His fastest time is a 109.52. Greg Murphy is up into second position. This is how he did it. Now watch Jason Bright on your left. He goes straight past Bright. Bright's been jumped twice now in 2 starts here today, and he just slots comfortably in between Scaife and Bright. Greg Murphy, a great start.
Ambient temperature currently 33 degrees, track temperature 43, so it is hotter at this time of the day than during yesterday's 20-lap sprint. There's your PlayStation 2 race score. Scaife leading from Murphy, 6/10 between them. Bright third. Seaton's done a good job so far, sitting in 10th position. That seems to be a much more consistent performance for the Ford Credit Falcon so far this weekend.
And big damage there also, I just noticed, on Max Wilson's car, the better electrical Ford. He'll come around now and probably, well, he's not coming into pit lane, Max Wilson, but these guys are. Yep. Holden Racing team's already in. Marcus Ambrose is right up the rear of Jason Bright. They can only go 40 k's an hour in there. Be interesting to find out what happened to Max Wilson. He had panel damage to the left, and the better electrical Ford had all sorts of bits falling off the left-hand side of it, but I don't think he came into pit lane. So Marcus Ambrose in. Oh, trouble on the right rear there. No. They haven't got the wheel nut on properly, and they dropped the car.
That's costly, Dick.
It's very, very costly indeed. And, you know, what I try and tell my guys, less haste, more speed.
So Ambrose rejoins the field, but that will have cost him a substantial amount of, I guess, track position.
Jeez, that wheel just went flying off too.
Absolutely, that looks like you get penalised for that if it was noticed. So
I think that was looked as though it was up the pit of Paul Morris maybe. So Jason Bargwanna comes out, Stephen Johnson comes out, Marcus Ambrose is out.
Looks like Neil Crompton emerging in the background there too in car 27, but that gives you an idea of the sort of dramas that Marcus Ambrose faced and how much it's cost him. Now we are getting word from pit lane that Mark Scaife is due in this lap, so car 1 due to pit this lap.
Pit window opened at lap number 2. Took us a hell of a long time to get to lap number 2 in this race, didn't it? Plenty of time. You can just see the front of the Ford there just gets a little bit locked up. Stevie Johnson, he comes around the hairpin.
That's what you've got to be very, very cautious of at the start of when you put new tyres on, that you don't lock up wheels, because they do lock very quickly until such times they get enough temperature in them.
Just to get back to your point there earlier about pitting early and maximising that strategy early in this race, is there a possible concern over tyre life? If you've got to do that second portion of the race, once you've changed the tyres, if it's a long run or a long stint on those tyres, how will they go in this Darwin heat?
Well, quite frankly, you know, these are very, very robust tyres. They've been going extremely well. I think that every single racetrack we've been to, they've been well and truly on the pace, and certainly they have the repeatability. They don't seem to have a problem with tyre temperatures. They don't seem to have any sort of problem at all.
Uh-oh, Dick. Look at your son. He's just got some more damage to the right front in a little bit of a tangle with Glenn Seaton.
Well, you know, that's the sort of thing that happens, I think, when you come out on cold tyres and the other guy's got a lap on his. He's got an opportunity of being able to... yeah, not a bad time to go bad, is it?
It's like losing the last page of your book, isn't it? But we know the result now. So Stevie Johnson tries the outside this time. He'll try and swing around on the inside of Glenn Seaton.
Look at the attack from Marcus Ambrose here as well, desperately trying to make up time. Scaife is in pit lane, and that looked as though it may have been a really good stop for the Holden Racing team. So Greg Murphy has stayed out in the Kmart Commodore.
Now, we talked about at the top of the show that it was just pretty much a miracle effort to get Stevie Johnson out in this race after a big bingle with John Bowe in practice. The damage that you see...
Keep pushing on, mate. You've lost a bit of your front nose there. Just keep going.
The damage that you see right there is probably, Dick, what, 1/20th of the damage that happened to that area.
Absolutely. There was an awful lot of damage to the car, basically on the right-hand front, the inner guard, and it broke the front upright and a couple of other things. But, you know, as I said, the guys did a great job of getting it back out just to qualify.
We've talked about the heat here in Darwin, and we know how much of an effect it can have on the drivers. It gets up around 55 to 60 degrees inside the cabin of those cars. But when you're tucked in behind another driver, particularly on the front straight here at Hidden Valley, the heat can also be a factor for the car, can't it? Because the car is, in effect, swallowing all that hot air and the carbon monoxide from the car in front of it. There are times when you've really got to pull out of that slipstream and try and get a bit of fresh air for the car, don't you?
Yeah, you have, but what happens is the fact is that the cars actually today are pretty good in the cooling side of things, but you know, there's not much you can do about it. You really just got to sort of press on and bear it, really.
Talking about bearing it, Glenn Seaton held his line there and really made it tough for Stephen.
Yeah, well, that's pretty tough when you've got somebody like Marcus behind you sort of coming up on you, and you know, I don't think if I was Steve I wouldn't have done it, but that's me.
Down to business with car number 1, Mark Scaife, on board with our VB camera. Scaife a 109.525, his quickest time of this race. Greg Murphy comes in. They're first in the line right down that end of pit lane. Have to get a bus ticket down there to go and see them. So Greg Murphy, let's see how quick this will be. More trouble there. Go. Just a little bit of a...
Yeah, they're that far down. I think they're in a different postcode, really.
And how about that? 40 Ks all the way.
David Bernard currently the race leader, but he's yet to complete his pit stop. He leads from Brad Jones, Max Wilson, Tony Longhurst. So we'll sort out the order once everyone has completed their pit stops for you. But Bernard, we understand, is due to pit on the next lap. So the Stone Brothers Racing team standing by.
And when they do sort it all out, Scaife will go to the top of the tree and Bright will be right behind him. Some interesting points coming out.
When you see that now Scaife is well and truly in front of the Kmart car, so it's really cost.
Yeah, it certainly did, didn't it?
It certainly did.
Okay, let's take a look at this race score. It'll move around as we sort out the pits, but at the moment on the road, Bernard is the leader, so too is Jones up there, Max Wilson and Tony Longhurst. 4 Fords fill out the first 4 places. This is race 2. It's round 4. You're at the Hidden Valley in Darwin, and it's boiling point here already. We've got a long way to go though. Hope you can enjoy it for the rest of the afternoon on your home of motorsport, Network 10, the V8 Supercars roll-on. The 2 Kmart Commodores, Todd Kelly and Greg Murphy, putting on some pretty good pressure on lap 10 of 35 here in the Northern Territory. And when they do sort out all these pit stops, we said on the other side of the break that it was going to cost the Kmart team. In fact, it was the Ambrose team that we were talking about, and Marcus Ambrose has dropped back about 8 positions. So on the road at the moment, Max Wilson is the race leader, but when it's all sorted out, Mark Scaife will be our leader, Jason Bright will be second, and then these 2 Kmart Commodores will make up 3rd and 4th. So they're right in the hunt. You've got 4 TWR cars at the top of the list.
Well, the opening laps was such a physical affair, but Craig Lowndes, you were taken out for a different reason. What happened?
Well, the engine's blown up in the 0-0 car, unfortunately, going into the hairpin for the second restart. The rear's locked up, and I thought it might have been just a brake problem, but by the time I turned around, got out of everyone's way, got going again, and didn't even get back to the pits, and the engine shut down, so I've got an engine problem, unfortunately.
Talk about quick. The crew have almost got the engine out and back in again. Will you be out for race 3?
Oh, definitely out for race 3. It's something that's, I don't know what I've done to come to this place, but love the place. We're having such a strong run. It was great for us and Ford and for the fans, but unfortunately, it's the way it goes.
Chin up, mate. Enjoy the sunshine.
Thank you.
He always is smiling, isn't he, Craig Lowndes? And even at this place, he's only won 1 of the races in 10 that he started before coming here, and that was the very first race that the V8s did here back in 1998. His best finish was with HRT, a 7th. There's Glenn Seaton going off the track at turn 1.
And was there a moment there with Marcus Ambrose? It's difficult to determine from that shot, but we know that Ambrose is on a charge at the moment.
Well, out in front, Mark Scaife leads his teammate Jason Bright. These 2 have already completed their compulsory tyre pit stops, lap 13 of 35. Behind them is Murphy and Kelly. Stephen Richards, Bernard, Bargwanna and Bow also on the pace as well.
Dick, just to touch on what Jeff Grech was talking about there before, it just seems as though historically with these style of pit stop races, when we've got a situation where you are not allowed to pit under a safety car period, as we have here at Darwin, everyone feels that it's just too risky to go beyond or to go for a lengthy period without doing your stop early.
Well, the risk you run is that if there was an incident now that brought out a pace car or a safety car, it would completely ruin their race, because at the end of the day, you know, everyone bunches up. You can't come into the pits, so you've then got to do your pit stop under green race conditions, and you're miles back.
You've got to feel sorry for Greg Murphy too, given the rocket ship start that he made in this race, and obviously a bit of a tough time in the pit stop, and it's allowed his teammate Todd Kelly to leapfrog him. So the lengthier pit stop, I think, is probably the main reason for that there.
It certainly is, and like the pit stops, you know, are just so important, because it is so much easier to pick up 1 or 2 seconds in a pit stop. But when you get out on the road, the cars are so equal. To get 1 or 2 seconds is like 15 laps.
He took us through the inside line before we got racing. Let's try and see what kind of race conditions make a difference to Greg Murphy on board the Kmart Commodore. You've got the telemetry there on the left-hand side of your screen. You see the revs per minute work up to over 7,000. You've got the race speed underneath that, and also you can see when he hits the brake and changes gears. So as he comes around turn 2 and works up through this incline, he's working up the gears here up into 3rd gear. Push it up to 4th and 5th. Over 200 kilometres now for the right-hander, turn 4. Backs it off, up towards the hairpin. This is the slowest part of the circuit. Back down to 65, 68 kilometres. There he goes, locked in behind his teammate. Nice and comfy. You won't see any dangerous moves here at the moment. Through to turn 6, the sweeper. Pushes it up to 200 Ks again. Listen to the car as he has to muscle it down this tricky section of the track. Oh, really crunching the gears and vital to get speed onto the straight. 1.1 kilometres worth of straight. It's a drag all the way down. He cranks it up to 6th gear and pushes it up to 265 Ks an hour. looking back to the Shell Helix car. Car number 18 of Paul Radicic. And look who he's having a battle with, Stephen Johnson, who could do with a Band-Aid from the front of the Ford.
Looks like a bit of an air brake.
Well, you know, Dick, it's not... I mean, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you guys could use that for cooling, because the amount of cooling things that I've seen up and down pit lane, I've seen ice vests, I've seen ice boxes, I've seen compressors, umbrellas, fans. They just do absolutely anything they can to keep cool.
Well, they certainly do, and you need to in these situations, and the part that you need to really keep cool is your head, and the difficulty is being able to get something that you can put on your head that's going to keep you cool, because the risk you run there is that at the end of the day, if it all goes wrong, you're twice as hot as what you would normally be.
And you're not just talking about keeping your head cool temperature-wise, are you? You've got to keep your race head on as well.
Well, we're currently in conjunction with Waco trying to actually adapt something to be able to do that, to be able to put on the market for people.
We understand at this point in time that the Aussie male team may be standing by for John Bowe, a possible gearbox problem of some sort. That's the word we're hearing at the moment. So John Bowe, there you have it, coming into pit lane, and that's a tough result for Bowe. It had been a good start to the weekend for the Aussie male team. Both cars getting into the top 10 shootout. This particular car they found in terms of its setup is a little kinder than Brad Jones' its new car. Brad's new car is one that they found it's pretty tight, and once you get it in the zone, there's Grant Denny getting down there to find out what's going on. But with Brad's car, you either get the setup right or wrong, and the slightest adjustment to the car can make a world of difference to the way it handles.
Absolutely, and he hasn't even got a passenger seat in there.
I was just wondering, I thought Grant was going to jump in and just go for a quick lap. John Bowe, these guys have really had to fight. You mentioned, Rossi, that they've had a bit of trouble, no question, with car number 21. Brad Jones has said that, but Bowie's had to fight the whole way just to make it here and then make it happen as well.
Yeah, stuck in gear for John Bowe. The crew are currently climbed inside, as you've seen, trying to pull the gear lever out now to see what they can do, but Bowe's just shut down the engine.
There were only two guys in the second qualifying session that made it up into the top 10 shootout. They both came out of the Aussie male team. Bowe slotted into 8th overall for the top 10 shootout. A great result. His teammate and boss, in fact, followed him through. So, back onto the track. We've got car 15 and car 51. Kelly and Murphy. The two Kmart Commodores are trying to chase down the two Holden Racing Team Commodores of Bright and Scaife.
Scaife, of course, the effective race leader, but we caught a quick shot there in pit lane before when John Bowe was in of the Better Electrical team standing by. I wonder if that's for Tony Longhurst. Longhurst and Craig Baird are 1 and 2 on the road at the moment, but they are yet to complete their pit stop stick. So they are two teams, Team Brock and the Better Electrical operation, have obviously elected to roll the dice.
Well, they didn't have an awful lot to lose because they were a fair way back in the field to start with, and they thought that they'd be able to get some nice clean air to be able to get out there and probably cut some really good laps. And this is one way of doing it. But in saying that, you do run a risk if they have a safety car.
Beardo's had a tough time in the lead up to this round as well. All his equipment from the Eastern Creek race in Sydney, when he was after the Sydney race, his car got broken into, lost his helmet, his race suit, his gloves, the whole lot. So he's just hopeful of getting it back at some stage if he possibly can.
Here comes David Bernard, the 25-year-old Queenslander. He's come a long way just to get here. Him and Marcus Ambrose are quite a unique, interesting story. They decided to drive here as part of a Ford promotion, packed up a Ford Explorer, and off they went. They've already done 4,000 kilometres behind the wheel before they even got here to race, and then another 240 k's when they get here in a different position, of course, because they're under the V8 Supercar race conditions. So the battle between 17 and 18 cars still continues.
You can see the damage to the front of Stephen's car, Dick. How much of an effect would that have on performance and handling of the car?
Well, it depends whether the undertray's been damaged at all, but you know, I'm not so sure that would make a lot of difference what you see there. It's probably cooling the front tyre a little more than what it would normally do.
Jason Barguana in car number 35. And behind him is his teammate as well. So everybody seems to be ganging up here. You've got the two HRT cars out the front, the two Kmart cars together, the two Shell Helix Ford cars together, and Stephen Ellery does a repeat performance of Glenn Seaton's effort at turn 1 and gets out onto the dirt on the Nintendo GameCube replay. You can see what happens. Thankfully, no damage for the super cheap car. Of this race, lap 23 of 35. We had such An amazing start to this race where all sorts of damage was done to all sorts of cars, and now we've got some fairly good racing going on. The two Valvoline Cummins Commodores, 34 and 35, Tander and Bargwanna, have been trying to hold off a charge from Marcus Ambrose, and in the meantime, Marcus Ambrose is getting the pressure put on him right up the back with Brad Jones. The battle you're looking at right now is position 7, 8, 9 and 10. And out the front, our race leader is Mark Scaife.
Should say a quick g'day to Mark Osler and his wife Tanya, who are back in Sydney due to have their first child any day now. And with Dick Johnson heading back to pit lane, we should welcome Russell Ingall to the commentary box, a place you don't normally like to visit.
Oh, I think I'm going to swap jobs. I think I'm going to come up here and send one of you like down drive the car, all right? The way I'm going this weekend.
No, mate, it's your car, you drive it. You can just take us on hot laps when everything's okay.
What's the diagnosis and what are they up to? What are the boys up to?
Yeah, she's a little bit ugly in the front, but they'll race tape it back together and it should be all right. It's just mainly superficial damage, so it should be all right.
If you ever came to a V8 race without race tape,
Be clean, Marcus. Think
you'd be
about the
gone, wouldn't you?
Mate, she's the band-aid of the racing fraternity, the race tape. Best invention ever. It just cures everything.
During the ad break there, we were talking about this battle between Marcus Ambrose and the Valvoline Cummins Commodores, and you were saying that the Valvoline cars, you've been watching them this weekend, and perhaps they've made a bit of an improvement in the engine department. They've got some good straight-line speed.
Yeah, the things don't handle real flash, but I tell you what, in a straight line, they got plenty of power. Like I was behind Bargs yesterday, and the thing was really quick, so they've made some gains. It looks, I mean, Marcus has got one of the quickest engines in the field, and he's, you know, Bargs is pulling away from him.
I had a chat to Garth Tander before this race. These guys tested at Winton. They have made adjustments to the front of the car, but they said one of the problems is the car's just getting too hot. And I said, well, you'd be pleased to come here, wouldn't you, Darwin, where it's 60-odd degrees inside the cabin, but that's something that they've got to work on. Basically, the car is getting too hot. A Nintendo GameCube replay at the back of the field shows some contact between one of the better electrical cars, that'd be Tony Longhurst or Max Wilson, and one of your teammates, Rusty.
Looks like Larry, I think.
Larry's gone out there as well, so some interesting stuff going on at the back of the field.
At this stage in the race, 25 of 35, how much thought would be being put into tyre conservation? Everyone only got 10 green tyres for this event. How much thought would be being placed into that?
Mate, with this longer race, but the rears will be getting real squeezy. I mean, it's a very hot ambient, a lot hotter than yesterday, and I think you can see the attitude. A lot of the cars, they're struggling for rear grip.
Getting word from pit lane that there might be some sort of problem to the rear of Paul Radisic's car. In fact, there he is. So we'll try and find out just what that problem is for the 18 Shell Helix Ford.
And just back to Gary Rogers Motorsport, I said at the top of the show there will be an appeal after that decision involving Garth Tander losing 80 championship points. I just want to explain that to you now because it is a pretty complex issue. Basically, the CAMS Tribunal found that the extra lap that Garth was awarded for being held behind the safety car was what they called an overcompensation, and they reduced the allowance to half a lap. It meant that Tander dropped from 2nd to 6th in race 1 and lost the 80 championship points, and I explained that flow-on effect, but there is an appeal pending from Gary Rogers.
We saw the cars coming down the front straight there just a second ago, Russell, where you've got the Birdsec Ford and the Aussie Mail Falcon both stepping out from behind Jason Bargwanna. We talked about that before. It's just to help the cooling of the car, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a ploy just to put each other off. It is purely for air in front. What happens is when you're right up behind a car, it's not only the engine, but the brakes get very hot because the ducts for that blow air onto the front brakes are actually in the same intake. So if you sit up behind a car, your engine temperature goes up, your brake temperature goes up, so you lose all round. So you've actually got to duck out, get some fresh air, so you've got some decent brakes when you go right to the end of the straight.
Not just the driver wanting a bit of cool air, hey?
No, there's none of that around here. We've got the strong bit.
Grant?
Yeah, well, we've just had our first real test of the shared boom system, and all the teams have reported a fairly successful usage of the system. The only team to have a small problem was Team Kiwi. They tangled their air hoses with Toll IPEC Racing. So far, A-OK for the new system.
You could see those problems, couldn't you, when we turned up here at Hidden Valley and saw booms and gantries next to each other. Now, when they sort that out for the next upcoming rounds, what will happen is the single car teams will have to share one boom. At the moment, they're sharing one bay, and they've still got their 2 booms there. Now, these are the comparison times between Jason Bargwanna and Marcus Ambrose, positions 8 and 9 over their last 4 laps. You can see that basically they're sharing quickest and slowest laps in between each other there. So Ambrose has got enough pace to hold off Bargwanna, and Bargwanna's got enough pace to put the pressure back on as well.
You can really see the engine power there. I mean, it must be frustrating. I mean, Marcus can get him through the corners. As soon as they come into a straight line, he pulls away by about a car, 2 car lengths. I mean, very frustrating.
Mike Excel, engine man for Gary Rogers Motorsport, no doubt would be happy with that. We are getting some word from pit lane at the moment that maybe the 17 Ford has got dramas as well, so possibly some trouble for Stephen Johnson, and that's right for David Bernard, yeah.
Stone Brothers Racing, they've been very impressed with this car. It's got a new engine underneath. They've spent about $80,000 putting that one in. And they only did 40 laps and 40 laps only at testing at Willowbank. That's where they finished it off. And they were very happy with the times. In fact, David Bernard was about half a second faster than that man there was Marcus Ambrose. So more trouble for Stephen Johnson.
Look at the front right. Yep. There is dramas on the front right of that car.
Yeah, it looks like, actually looks like the wheel's come loose because it was sticking out of the guard. Now it's gone back in again.
I wonder if something's collapsed in the front suspension
that
there.
actually looks like something's actually gone in the front end.
Well, remember that section of the car basically has been totally redone since the smash that he had with John Bowen Friday practice. So on lap 28 of 35, Stevie Johnson's done a good job just to maintain his position throughout the field, and now he's just going to have to limp back to the entry to pit lane, which isn't too far.
I reckon you've lost the right front wheel looking at it, mate.
Yeah. I reckon that was a good call to bring it in.
The right front wheel ready for this thing?
It is an upright, yeah, it's broken an upright in it, or a wishbone.
Well, gee, we ushered Dick Johnson out the commentary box door at just the right time, didn't we? He's not having a good day.
He'd be loving this, wouldn't he?
I don't know
about
the right time, because I think all Dick's done this weekend is sign checks for things that need to be fixed. Lap 29 of 35 as Stephen Johnson comes in. Let's take a look at how they stand at the moment. Our race leader is Mark Scaife. He's got a 2.46 second lead over his teammate Jason Bright. Then it's Kelly and Murphy fighting a good fight for 3rd and 4th. Bernard is the leading Ford driver, in fact the only Ford driver in the top 8. Marcus Ambrose and Bradley Jones make up your top 10.
Seaton is in 11th place. Good job by Paul Wheel. He made up 7 spots in the first race yesterday and doing a great job at the moment. So is Neil Crompton. After a tough weekend, he's rocketed up to 13th place. Great effort.
As if it's not hot enough in the territory, Cameron McLean has a hell of a battle on his hands in the car number 40 VIP Pet Foods entrant. Look at that smoke billowing from the right rear.
What could that be, Russell?
Looks like actually a wheel bearing or wheel seal. It's actually wobbling a bit. So
look at this, a good effect. Mark Scaife here too. He's right in behind. So
that's
our
risky.
race leader.
No, it definitely looks like a wheel bearing because there's oil coming out, probably getting onto the brake disc. That's where the smoke's coming from.
And Jason Richards gets out of the way and lets Scaife go past. Now take a look at this as they go into turn 1. Cameron McLean will let Scaife go through as well. So Scaife is our race leader. The smoke continues to pour out the back of McLean's car, and Richards is now caught and all that behind him. The Canberra 400, Saturday the 8th and Sunday the 9th of June. There's the details to get hold of your tickets. One of the greatest races on the V8 Supercar circuit. It of course involves the reverse grid. It's a hell of a weekend. We go from the heat of the Northern Territory to the ice cold of the nation's capital. Make sure you grab your tickets. www.tickettech.com or the number on your screen 029219 6666.
McLean's actually making it quite hard here for Jason Richards, and the reason is they're fighting for position 24th and 25th spot. So Cameron obviously not too keen to move over in the VIP Pet Foods Ford.
Well, basically, Russell, how long is that going to last? I mean, he's already done a lap and a half with it like that.
Well, if it keeps pumping oil like that, the diff temperature is going to go up through the roof, and what will happen is the diff will just lock up. So it'll be interesting if that locks up. She'll be a big off, I tell you.
It's amazing this weekend the sort of failures that we're seeing in certain areas, aren't we, mechanically?
A lot of mechanical failures, everything from engines, which I suppose the heat's probably got a bit to do with that, but I mean there's been suspension failures, and I think it's just the level of competition there. You're pushing the car so hard because the tyres hang in there, you're loading the car every lap, and that's why I think you're seeing a lot of things like these sort of things, wheel bearings going, and quite amazing.
Taylor there for Jason Richards under brakes. He comes down the inside of Jason Bright now. Was Bright just letting him go there? I think just to stay calm. That might be the approach that Jason Bright took.
Gee, we've seen some incidents around that part of the track, haven't we, coming up to turn 3. It's a tricky little area of the circuit. This is down the other end of the circuit. Max Wilson in car number 65. He's got Paul Radicic behind him. That is on the entry to the main straight. It's a very hard one to get right because you come through turns 8 and 9, the little flip-flop, and then they've got to get maximum speed to get back onto the long main straight.
When you cast your mind back too, Russell, it was a tough weekend for the Dick Johnson racing team at this round last season too, wasn't it? With Paul Radicic not even able to start the Sunday races.
For sure. Look, it's a tricky place, and look at these things about how many times you see loose wheels now, and I think a lot of that's got to do with you have to do a pit stop now, wheel change in 8.5 seconds. Like our guys actually did one of Larry's car at 8.5. To do a wheel change like that is just, that's super quick times, and the pressure's on them, so you know, you always see now and then they want to get that gun off as quick as they can, don't do it up quite as much, and bang, the wheel comes off.
Are the boys doing daily practice at the workshop for that sort of thing?
Oh, for sure. We've actually, most of the teams have got separate, like a dummy front end of a car, and they go there and after work, half an hour, you know, when they knock off, they spend half an hour on the rattle guns on this dummy front of a car, just changing wheels, and that's all they do.
I know where to go next time I have a problem. PlayStation 2 race score shows that Mark Scaife has moved up 1 position since the start of this race. Brighton Kelly and Greg Murphy make up the top 4. David Bernard's leaped up 4 positions to go into 5th. And you talk about pit stops and crew and the way that they work. These guys, the Kmart Commodore team, have had quite a professional outfit, of course, under the TWR banner. Look at Neil Crompton move up 23 positions. And I spoke to Greg Murphy after Eastern Creek, and he's just telling me just how fantastic his guys did. Shows that the race doesn't just belong to the guy in the cockpit. I mean, they did a 6.8 second change or something at Eastern Creek. It was just electrifying, and the race belongs to both sides of pit lane now, doesn't it?
That's phenomenal. 6.8. I didn't even know that. That is super good. Like, it's getting down to Formula 1 times, and considering there's only 1 guy on each wheel, where Formula 1 you got 3 guys on each wheel, that's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, the teams are professional. The whole circus is just getting more and more professional. A pretty good battle. This has been raging for such a long time, and Brad Jones is really putting a lot of pressure on the Pertec Ford of Marcus Ambrose. That's 9 and 10, so they're racing for a top 10 finish here. In front of them is Jason Barguana, and in front of that trio is Gar Tander, but he's got some clear road in front of him. Almost every corner Brad Jones has had a sniff up the inside or outside, but here's our race leader. This man is going to do it again. Jason Bright got the first victory underway here at Hidden Valley on yesterday on race 1, and now Mark Scaife. He's been out in front. A 109.29 is his best lap time, but more importantly, he's been cool and calm again, and he's going to claim another race victory. So race 2 and 80 more championship points goes to this man, Mark Scaife. Well done. He's done it again, all right. Scaife comes across the line in first. His teammate Jason Bright will come in second, then Todd Kelly and Greg Murphy 3 and 4. So 4 cars out of the TWR stable fill the top 4 positions. David Bernard in 5th, Stevie Richards in 6th, Tander 7th, Barguana 8th, and Marcus Ambrose in 9th. So he's held off a good challenge from Bradley Jones in 10th overall.
Like to have a look at the rear tyres on those Holden Racing Team Commodores, because I reckon they'd be in really good shape, Russell. I mean, despite the length of time, they pitted early, both the guys, but I reckon the way the cars are looking on the road, they'd be in pretty good shape.
Well, that's a good lap time too. 1 minute 10.9 on Scaife's last lap. That's pretty quick. Like,
well done, Mark. That was a good drive.
He was a good drive, actually. I mean, 59, that's incredible. 59 degrees in Ambrose's car, that's getting warm. I mean, I don't think there's any other sport that you could get that hot, you know, inside of a car or running or whatever. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
Unless you play chess in the sauna. Inside the car, 59 degrees for Marcus Ambrose. Yesterday, Craig Baird got up to 63 degrees inside his car. This is how they finished on your Shell Helix race score of race 2. There's 1 to go. Scaife and Bright, Kelly and Murphy, Bernard, Richards, Tander and Barguana, and then there'll be a few Fords filling out 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Great effort from Neil Crompton in 13th position.
Some big movers through that field. Both the Valvoline Cummins Commodores did well, so too did Crompton. Look at that, 11 spots Simon Wills picked up in the Caterpillar Ford and 13 for Paul Romano.
And down the back of the field, the Kiwi Jason Richards in 25th. Stephen Ellery's there. Look who didn't finish. Johnson, Morris, Forbes, and quite a few others as well. Come back and join us. We've got more from Hidden Valley and Darwin.